Yes, Senator Cormann.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Deputy President. Again, I thank all senators that have contributed to this very important debate and about this about those two very important measures that we have before us today. One, the bill which was passed a bit earlier, and second, this particular disallowance motion. Now, I just want to really commend Senator Seward for her very insightful remarks. And they echo, I'm sure, the sentiments of Senators Fielding, Xenophon, and they certainly echo the sentiments of the coalition. We never wanted to get to this point. We went out on the 8th of September and we gave public notice that a majority of senators did not support what the government was proposing to do. We said that if the government went ahead with a 50% cut to the Medicare rebates for cataract surgery, it would hurt patients. It would force them into long public hospital queues where the procedure costs more for taxpayers to perform, and it would in particular hurt patients in rural and regional Australia. Now, what did we think? When we made that announcement on the 8th of September, what was our expectation? Our expectation was that a sensible minister that understands about parliamentary accountability, that understands that executive government is accountable to both houses of parliament, would have realised that she's got a problem. Oh, we announced this budget cut in May. A majority of senators have indicated that they don't support that particular cut. What does the minister do? Well, to start off with, she ignores us. She does nothing. She puts her head in the sand. So what is the next step? The next step is to run a scare campaign, to frighten patients, to frighten doctors, to threaten the Senate, and to say, if you go ahead with this, there will be no rebate at all. Now, that is not a way to treat the Senate. I mean, we have expressed a very serious position based on very serious consideration of all of the issues. And now this minister has got form on this. And I mean, I understand that, clearly Senator Xenophon, he clearly has got a higher opinion of the minister's performance than we have on this side of the parliament. However, I urge the Senate to reflect on Minister Roxon's performance when it comes to legislation and budget measures before this Senate. Now, it is as if she's driving a truck at 150 miles an hour, heading straight for that wall, and instead of slowing down, turning right, turning left, picking up some additional passengers, she just keeps on going until the truck hits the wall and it's too late. Now, Senator Seward is exactly right. The government could very easily fix this. If the government came out now and said, OK, we understand that we played it hard, but we understand that we haven't got the support, so we go back to the original rebate for cataract surgery as it's in the current regulations. The government could do it in a whole number of ways. Probably the easiest way right now would be for the government to support our bill when it comes to the House of Representatives, to give it precedence and to vote in favour of it. That would fix it. And you know what? It would fix it not only for this particular occasion, it would fix it for the future. Because the argument that the government is putting forward is completely untenable. The government is telling us that they've got delegated power through the Health Insurance Act 1973 to do whatever they want with the Medicare benefit schedule. And that whatever it is they want to do, whether they want to introduce 90% cuts to it, even if the government did the most irresponsible thing, what the government is saying that our only option is to delete or not to delete. Now, that is, from a public policy point of view, that is not in our national interest. The government, whenever they come into this parliament and want to pass legislation, and we complain on this side because it's our role to test and scrutinise, we say, well, there's not enough detail in this. All of your detail is going to be in the regulations. Then, but you know what the government says? The government says, well, don't worry. Don't you worry about that, Jana. Don't you worry about that, Jana, because there's this disallowance process. All you need to do is move a disallowance and all will be fine. Now, what this exercise has proven very clearly, that everything is not going to be fine. Because if this Senate wants to stand up for patients, if this Senate wants to make sure that elderly patients across Australia in desperate need of timely and affordable access to this very important life-saving surgery, then a disallowance motion won't do the job. And well, that is just not good enough. And that is why the opposition, together with Senators Fielding and Xenophon, very carefully considered all of the procedural options available to us. Now, I just quickly, in summing up, refer to the advice which Minister Roxon has circulated today, and there's a particular comment in there, and this briefing note is signed by David Learmont, Deputy Secretary in the Department of Health and Ageing, and has been signed as noted by Nicola Roxon, the Minister. Now, point 5, while the advice provided to Senator Cormann at the hearing on the 21st of October 2009 was correct as a matter of general principle, much depends upon the way in which the disallowance motion is drafted. Well, tell us something we don't know. I mean, the reality is this, and I'm sure the official, and I'm not meaning to embarrass her, but I'm sure the official now realises that she actually got it wrong in the answer that she provided at Senate estimates. I was a bit surprised at the firmness of her response and at her clear indication that if the Senate disallowed those items, that we would return to the previous rebates. I did not expect that answer. And you know, what I'm concerned about is that since having given what I believe was an incorrect answer, the department hasn't gone out of its way, and the government hasn't gone out of its way to correct that information. So what the department now is trying to do is cover up its tracks. They're trying to have it both ways. So what they're really trying to suggest, oh well, you know, what we said was really right, but really it depends on how it was introduced. Well, I mean, that's just rubbish. Like the question was very specific. What would happen if the government disallowed those rebates? The officer knew what I was talking about, and the answer was, well, I think they would revert to the previous rebates. Now, we did consider a whole series of procedural options to make sure we achieve our objective. We are not wedded to process. We are flexible with our process, Minister. What we're focused on is the objective that we're trying to achieve. And the objective we're trying to achieve is to stop the government from cutting these rebates for cataract surgery by 50%, and to do it in a way which will not leave thousands and thousands of patients and doctors out there without the certainty of having that rebate in place on an ongoing basis. We don't want to be part of a circumstance where, you know, because of this disallowance, the rebate, the item numbers are all of a sudden deleted altogether. That is why we initially planned to move an amendment to the Health Insurance Act through the Health Insurance Amendment Compliance Bill 2009, and being flexible on process but very focused on the outcomes we were wanting to achieve. When the government played its little tricks in the House of Representatives yesterday, we swiftly changed process, remaining very focused, Minister, on the outcomes we were wanting to achieve. This has got nothing to do with obstruction. This has got all to do about standing up for patients. Now, Minister, it should tell you something, that government senators are the only ones in this chamber that think that what we are doing here today is a stunt. It's not a stunt. This is very serious business. This is about standing up for patients. Now, I do have to respond to a few other remarks that the Minister has made. Now, the Minister was talking about, you know, private-public. He actually tried to sell us as a virtue that, well, this only applies to the private system. It doesn't apply to the public system. Well, I mean, tell us something we don't know. We know that you're targeting people who access the surgery through the private system, even though the only saving you will make is the $313 per rebate, per procedure, and the additional cost that you will impose on taxpayers is an additional $3,500 plus. We understand that. We understand that patients who will get access to this procedure through the public system, if they're lucky enough, will get that access for free. But you know what? The thing that the Minister doesn't understand is the reality of our health workforce across Australia, because ophthalmologists actually happen to work both in the private and in the public system. And you know what? I mean, you're here poo-pooing this quote I read out. This is a very dedicated ophthalmologist. So, and you're essentially you're totally dismissing anything he said. Here's an ophthalmologist who operates as a private practitioner in Sydney, and he happens to go and provide services in outback New South Wales. Now, I mean, what doesn't the minister understand about this? If you make his private practice less viable, it makes it more difficult for him to do some of the other things, e.g. providing service to regional New South Wales. Now, I find it quite stunning, quite astounding that the minister is not able to understand such a simple fact. Now, I was running out of time before in relation to the issue of Avastin and Lucentis. I mean, the minister and officials of the department have been running this line how ophthalmologists have not come forward with constructive ideas on how we can achieve efficiencies. Well, the reality is they have. And I'm not going to hold up the Senate by going through all of those proposals again, but one specific one was in relation to exploring the use of Avastin as a much cheaper option to achieve similar clinical outcomes. Now, I asked questions about this at the end of July, and as Minister Ludwig well knows, because he had to take the question on Minister Roxon's behalf, like after 90 days, no answer was provided. We had to again use what the minister would describe as a procedural trick, a stunt, whatever he wants to call it, to force the government to the table and provide an answer that the Australian people are entitled to. Now, I thought I'd get a bit of information, but guess what? The question I asked is whether the department had received advice from the Royal Australian and New Zealand College of Ophthalmologists Working Party recommendation that it's clinically appropriate to use medications such as Avastin and triamcinolone to treat blinding conditions as part of an intravitreal injection. Now, the answer is yes, they did get that advice. I asked what the minister was doing about it, and the answer in CND, the minister is considering this advice and has requested further information. Do you know when the minister received that advice? On the 26th of June 2009, according to the advice, to the answer to the question on notice. So, this is a minister that's not interested in actually constructively exploring positive ways of achieving efficiencies. This minister is not interested in achieving efficiencies in the health system in a way that doesn't hurt patients, because if she was, she would not have been sitting on this for more than 4 months. She would not have been sitting on this for more than 4 months. Anyway, in the interest of being able to conclude this debate, I leave it at that, and I commend this disallowance motion to the Senate.